What if I told you that through the skillful, sustained use of repetitive, fraudulent media propaganda campaigns, the collective self-image and collective self-esteems of the white masses have been falsely bolstered at the expense of those of black people? These fraudulent propaganda campaigns are at the roots of both the profound feelings of self-loathing that now afflicts many black people, and they're at the heart of the false internalized feelings of superiority that many whites possess. Telling the truth is treasonous given that criminals and liars are ruling the world. However, the white society sits upon a throne of lies, and we Africans throughout the diaspora are the greatest victims of those lies. We Africans are the disorganized troops against the white society's well-organized lies. Nonetheless, we must keep telling the truth. And we must never underestimate the power of planting seeds of truth within fertile minds, because the truth has a vibrational frequency that's more powerful than any lie. All you have to do is keep repeatedly telling the truth, and it will eventually prevail over the lies. Maybe not immediately or instantly, but the truth will eventually prevail. Just keep telling the truth. The truth can be highly disruptive to a corrupt society built upon a foundation of lies. This is why whenever we speak truth or post truthful information that contradicts the white society's lies, Facebook blocks it, Twitter deletes it, Google hides it, YouTube bans it, the white mainstream media censors it, and white governments forbids it. This is our hidden reality. Nonetheless, those who know the truth must teach African proverb. The reason why many black people are now self-loathing, perceives ourselves as being our own worst enemies, and reveres Caucasians in spite of such a brutally horrific history of oppression and discrimination has absolutely nothing to do whatsoever with a silly slave syndrome myth. Those who believe that does because they're ignorant. When people are ignorant, they believe nonsense. This noted mindset that exists among far too many black people that clearly benefits the white society and that's too widespread to be coincidental are the deliberate result of the white society's direct monopoly over information that are systematically and repetitively fed into the collective minds of black people. For 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and during our entire education development from the ages of 5 through 18, the white society are the programmers of most of the information and media images that are systematically fed into the collective minds of black people. Because they control the information that we receive, this allows them to control what we believe. They've exploited this scenario to subliminally embed a black mental enslaving lie into the collective minds of many black people. It's a situation that's very much like the Matrix film. Within the film, Neo awakens to discover that the true humans were mentally enslaved by soulless beings masquerading themselves as being the highest evolved humans. Moreover, that these soulless beings were the programmers of everything that the humans believed. These soulless beings kept the true humans trapped within a perpetual state of mental enslavement because it allowed them to exploit them without any resistance. The white oppressors often revealed through movies what they've done to black people. Some describe this practice as being a form of ritual mocking of the victim, but it's actually a practice that allowed the white oppressors to avoid the law of karma, called revelation of the method. There are hidden rules and principles within this warfare of domination that must be adhered to. The oppressors must make their oppressive tactics available to the oppressed. They therefore often embed them within movies, TV shows, and books. They don't make the revelation easily recognized. They do so only enough to meet the threshold necessary to avoid the law of karma. That's K-A-R-M-A, karma. They masquerade it as appearing as being merely entertainment. However, because the oppressive tactics have been made available, when the oppressed do not act upon the presented knowledge, by default, they've given the oppressors permission to oppress and rule over them. It's a social contract that allows the oppressors to avoid the law of karma. The first Matrix film is clearly a revelation of the method that allows the white oppressors to avoid the law of karma. However, the science fiction aspect of the Matrix film, wherein which millions of humans are immersed in an amniotic fluid-filled pods and their bodies are intravenously fed nutrients while their minds are perpetually subjected to a virtual reality, is not the real Matrix. That fantasy version of the Matrix has prevented millions from seeing the real Matrix as it truly exists. The real matrix are societal conditions created and sustained by misinformation, distortion of facts, denial of truth, and even the manipulation of the past to falsely exalt Caucasians. It's a false version of reality that's been pulled over our eyes to prevent us from seeing the true reality. More specifically, it's a false, illusory, white exalting worldview grafted upon us from birth through an elaborate, unethical perception management system. This is not some feeble-minded conspiracy theory, as so many have been brainwashed to think. It's the absolute truth. Perception management programs are well-proven propaganda techniques that involves altering the public's perception of reality to suit the objective of the ruling class. Perception management systems are an essential part of modern information warfare. It's how the white ruling class steers and shapes the society in ways that serves their hidden agendas and interests. This disclosed perception management system uses disinformation and deception to create and to sustain false assumptions within the society that aids the white society in maintaining their social dominance over black people. It was created by white social engineering scientists and is maintained by white propaganda designers. Because of this perception management system, your perception of reality has been distorted. It's an elaborate white deception that many have appropriately named the Black People's Matrix. The distortion of reality is actually easy to achieve because public perceptions of reality is not shaped based on facts nor reality. Public perceptions are actually shaped by the narratives that are repeatedly fed into a society. Therefore, the basic tool required for the distortion of reality is to merely repetitively feed false narratives into society. All you have to do is keep repeatedly feeding lies through media ads, falsely scripted movies, miseducation, and before long, the majority of the population will then accept those lies rather than what's actually true. Those lies will become their truths, and the public will then function based upon those lies. This is not science fiction. Repetition makes false information appear more truthful. It's a true social science fact. And all societies function based upon their narratives that are systematically and repetitively fed into society. Therefore, as a means of maintaining white social dominance over black people, the narratives fed into the white dominant society are distorted to falsely exalt Caucasians and to falsely marginalize black people. Doing so creates and sustains false perceptions within society that directly affects hiring, firing, promotions, and even criminal sentencings in ways that aids the white society in maintaining their position of social dominance over black people. Welcome to the real world. The white society is in fact literally falsely scripted to propagate the myth of white racial superiority and the myth of black racial inferiority. And they've done so by feeding lies into our society. Case point and proof. The white society miseducates us to believe that the world's first scholars originated in ancient Greece. The teachers in all the universities. However, the Greeks openly admitted that their knowledge originated from African scholars. When Socrates wrote of his studies in the book Bucyrus, he said that I studied philosophy and medicine in Africa's Egypt. All of Greece's original scholars received their formal education in Africa, but they whitewashed that fact. The white society also miseducates us to believe that the father of medicine was a Greek named Hippocrates. However, the true father of medicine was an African named Imhotep. Imhotep was practicing medicine and writing on the subject for 2,200 years before Hippocrates, the so-called father of medicine, was even born. Imhotep is the author of the Egyptian medical text, which contains almost 100 terms describing different injuries and treatments. And out of medical text, the oldest ever found, written by an African. The white society also miseducates us to believe that Africans were illiterate and uncivilized before the Europeans invaded, and that it was Europeans that civilized Africans. This is in fact an outright lie. The truth of the matter is that when Europeans invaded Africa, It was a profound act of betrayal because long before the Europeans exploited their game weaponry advantage of guns and cannons to invade Africa, it was Africans that in fact civilized Europe. Africans introduced science, writing, math, philosophy, and also hygiene practices such as shaving, the use of toothpaste, perfumes, fragrance oil, deodorant, and Africans even introduced the daily bath to Europeans. Queen Isabella of Spain bragged that she had only bathed twice in her whole life. Queen Elizabeth I of London claimed that she was the cleanest woman in all of Europe for reportedly taking a bath once a year. This horrible hygiene practice in Europe discontinued once the Africans introduced the daily bath to Europeans. Furthermore, the world's oldest university, library, manuscript, encyclopedia, human prosthetic, mathematical tools, medical journals are all located in Africa. Africans invented the wheel, paper, the calendar, the concept of 24 hours in a day. Africans are the first to build in stone and to smelt metal. The largest wall ever built is in Africa, not the Great Wall of China. It's the Great Wall of Benin in Nigeria. These facts are deliberately omitted from our whitewashed history books, movies, TV shows, because they refute the myth of white racial superiority over black people. The white society also miseducates us to believe that Africa's ancient Egyptians were ridiculously Europeans. Although Egypt is physically located in Africa, and although carbon-dating tests have scientifically proven that the ancient kingdom was built by Africans many thousands of years long before the arrival of the first Greeks and the first Arabs during the 7th century, the white society and the Arabs depicts the ancient Egyptians as being their race. The hidden reality is that all scientific facts confirm that Africa's ancient Egyptians were in fact Africans. The white society and the Arabs are gaslighting us when they pretend like there's a legitimate debate regarding the racial identity of Africa's ancient Egyptian. Pretending that there's a debate gives them leverage to claim it's their history. But however, all scientific facts confirm that Africa's ancient Egyptians were in fact accordingly African. As I've already stated, the carbon date testings have scientifically proven that the ancient kingdom was built by Africans thousands of years long before the first Greeks and Arabs arrived in Egypt in the 7th century. But there's even much more. Hair sample testings, melanin concentrated skin testings, bone density testing, geographical location, and DNA genetic testings have all scientifically proved that Africa's ancient Egyptians were in fact Africans. In 2012 and 2013, DNA analysis conducted on Pharaoh Tutankhamun, Ramses III, Ramses IV, and several other Egyptian mummies were tested by DNA Tribes, an American company that specialized in DNA testing, which scientifically proven that Africa's ancient Egyptians were in fact Africans. Their DNA proved that they belonged to the human Y chromosome group E1B1A. This is the Y chromosome consistent with the sub-Saharan Africans who currently speaks the Niger-Congo languages. Everything you've been taught from the white society are lies that exalt and marginalize us. The white society also miseducates us to believe that their racial group are the highest evolved Homo sapiens and that we Africans are the lowest evolved. They subliminally convey this message by placing their racial group at the highest end of the Darwin evolutionary chart while placing the darkest skin at the lowest end. This subliminally conveys the message that whites are highly evolved and we blacks are the lowest evolved. They also created the false narrative that Caucasians are African Homo sapiens that turned white due to migrating to the colder climate of Europe, an alleged form of cold weather albinism. However, according to two recent studies published in the journal Nature that looked at a DNA fossil hidden in the modern human genome, DNA analysis have scientifically proven that Caucasians are not African albinos, but have instead inherited their skin color and an animalistic hair type from the Neanderthal DNA. The same studies also found that Africans are the only pure homogeneous human species, and also that the Darwinian evolutionary chart theory does not apply to we Africans. Unlike Caucasians that evolved from lower primates, Africans have always been Homo sapiens. Genetic testings have scientifically confirmed that Africa's melanated chocolate skin color and woolly black hair are the direct result of Homo sapien DNA. They toss everything in reverse. Africans are the true Homo sapien. The implications of these findings are enormous. They mean that Caucasians are literally Neanderthal that masquerade themselves as being albino African Homo sapiens. Neanderthals evolved totally separate from African Homo sapiens. This might be a bit of a disappointment to those of you that favor the premise that all life originated in Africa and spread out from there. But that story has totally fallen apart. Furthermore, the premise has always negated the fact that when the early African Homo sapiens first traveled into Europe, that they encountered countless many thousands of the pink-skinned animalistic hair-type Neanderthals already living in Europe. Neanderthals that have been living there, according to experts, for more than 80,000 years, according to the experts. However, Caucasians, although Caucasians share more physical characteristics with Neanderthals than they presently do with the Africans, they've totally separated themselves from the Neanderthals, and then they falsely attach themselves onto we Africans. They did so in order to falsely give themselves a Homo sapien origin. Whenever those who obviously despises us so uncharacteristically turns around and make the claim that they came from us, doing so always somehow benefits themselves. Their narcissistic racist tendencies result in them taking it a step further by adding the claim that they are the highest evolved Homo sapiens and that we Africans are the lowest evolved. However, DNA science has scientifically proven that we Africans are the true Homo sapiens and that Caucasians are Neanderthals. Certainly, this may sound absurd to those who haven't studied this research, but it's well known among those of us who have studied the research. Dr. Robert Cypri, a Norwegian scientist and anthropologist, author, he wrote a book called Species with Amnesia, Our Forgotten History. He's Caucasian. He writes without racist intentions that Caucasians and Africans are two separate species. Africans are Homo sapiens and Caucasians are Neanderthals. Humanity isn't one race, but it's a hybrid of species. He continued by saying that if we're of one kind, why then does the African mother carrying the Caucasian child body often tries to reject the offspring? He said humanity isn't one race, but it is a hybrid of species. Now, what Dr. Cypri is referring to isn't commonly known by most people, but it's absolutely true. It's a scientific fact. It's because of the Caucasian's RH factor, which means Reese's monkey factor. This is why whenever a black woman becomes impregnated by a white man, her doctor has to give her something called a Rogame injection. That's spelled RHOGAM, Rogame injection, to prevent her body from trying to naturally abort it. If her doctor fails to do this, it's medical malpractice. When a woman receives the Rogame injection, it protects her immune system from the exposure to the current baby, Rh positive blood. If she does not receive the injection, her body may develop antibodies that could attack the positive red cells of the babies in a subsequent pregnancy, which will cause the HDN, and HDN can cause serious illness, brain damage, or even death to a fetus of an unborn. This isn't common knowledge, but it's the absolute truth. It's why black expecting mothers are always asked, what is the race of the father? The pregnant woman typically receives the Rogame shot twice during their pregnancy, once at approximately 28 weeks and once within 72 hours of her delivery. If in fact the newborn baby is Rh positive, the African body automatically responds by protecting itself from the Rh. Had it not been for this biological response for the African woman, which becomes pregnant by Caucasians, there would have been millions of more mulattoes born during slavery. The reason why the number was lower than it has been was because of this response within the black woman. But that's a whole other conversation for another day, okay? Let's move on. Dr. Robert Cypri points to this biological responses as proof that Africans and Homo sapiens are Homo sapiens and Caucasians and Neanderthal. He said that humanity are different species, and the white man whitewash history to make himself appear to be the superior Homo sapien. Now, in the book Iceman Inheritance, author Michael J. Bradley, whom is also a Caucasian, writes that perhaps the Caucasian's Neanderthal DNA might explain the inhumane behaviors throughout history. He's a Caucasian. He wrote that throughout history, the Caucasians have demonstrated an almost total disregard for the human lives of non-whites. They've demonstrated an entrenched predisposition for brutal racism that is matched only by their proclivity for deceit, greed, and hunger for power. They alone are the most arrogant and the race most predisposed to racism. All other races have been their victims and their enemies. Their subjugation, murder, exploitation of all other races are unparalleled. While labeling all other races as being savages, the Caucasians have in fact been the most brutally savage throughout history. These are the people who write all our narratives. Now, Bradley believes that these proclivities among Caucasians may be directly connected to the ancient prehistoric beginnings. The white society also falsely give themselves credit for most inventions that were in fact made by black people. The white society miseducates us by teaching us that Thomas Edison is responsible for lighting up the world. However, the true inventor that lit up the world was in fact an African American named Lewis Latimer. Because the truth is this, after Thomas Edison patented his light bulbs, no companies purchased nor mass produced it. This is because it was deemed not efficient enough, so no white company purchased, not even one. It lit very dimly and lasted only a few minutes. The inventor whose light bulb was purchased, mass produced, and that was dispatched around the world to oversee its installation was in fact an African American named Lewis Latimer. Therefore, the hidden reality is that the true narrative is in fact that it's a black man that lit up the entire world. The white society is falsely scripted to propagate the myth of white superiority. The white society also miseducated us to believe that Henry Ford invented the first automobile. It was actually an African American inventor and carriage company entrepreneur named Charles Richard Patterson that built the first automobile. The C.R. Patterson and Son Company started out as a carriage building firm in 1873. In 1873, he created his own carriage company. In the early 1900s, Patterson and his sons converted the company from a carriage business to an automobile business. He called his first cars the horseless carriage. It was released in 1905 and sold for $850. It had a four-cylinder Continental engine, and C.R. Patterson began making automobiles long before Henry Ford, and his automobiles were considered to be more sophisticated. C.R. Patterson and his sons were forced out of business by Henry Ford in 1939. It was then the company was forced to close their big wooden doors. The following are two additional feats achieved by black people. And while the white society did not falsely give themselves credit for these following achievements, as they did with the two others, they however omitted from the whitewashed history books. Here's one. Do you know that the first successful heart surgery performed on this planet was performed by a black surgeon within a black-owned hospital? Dr. Daniel Hale Williams, born in 1856, died in 1931, founded the Providence Hospital and Training School for Nurse. That was the first black-owned hospital in America in 1891, and he performed the first successful heart surgery in 1893. Following the surgery, white surgeons from around the world came to learn from Dr. Williams. Many white surgeons had attempted the surgery earlier, but all their patients died. In 1940, Dr. Charles Drew, another African-American doctor, achieved yet another medical pioneer breakthrough. He invented the blood plasma storage system. We know that saved the lives of millions of people around the world. And just like Dr. Williams, he had experienced much earlier, white doctors from around the world came to learn from him and to how they can use it. Dr. Drew was asked by the white government officials to establish a blood bank for the world. The hidden reality is that in spite of cultural traumas wrought by the injustice of slavery and white racism, most inventions that have revolutionized the entire world were in fact either invented by black people or were directly inspired by black people. This is the hidden reality the whites hide from you to maintain their social dominance. Without black people, there would exist no internet, no cell phones. We wouldn't have cameras and microphones on our cell phones. We wouldn't have the accurate weather forecasting system. We wouldn't have the cataract laser removal scope. There would also be no emails, no GPS, no hearing aids, no touch-tone phones, no caller ID, no home security surveillance systems, no game cartridges, no motorized vehicles, no steam engines, no traffic lights, no working light bulbs, no elevators, therefore no skyscrapers, no air conditioners. We wouldn't have the modern PC, no 3D movies, no central heating, no refrigerators, no helicopters, no washing machine, no lawnmowers, no dryers, no refrigerated trucks, no fiber optics, no nanotechnology, not even the female sanitary pads, no bathroom tissue holders, no pencil sharpener, etc., etc. These proved that in spite of cultural trauma, most inventions that revolutionized the world were invented by black people. It also proved that there's not a human on the planet whose life has not been enriched because of the many inventions that came from the minds of black people. This is a fact. When a well-packaged web of lies have been sold gradually to the masses over generations, the truth will seem utterly ridiculous and its speaker a raving lunatic. White people invented the patent office and have used it to steal the intellectual property rights from black people because in order for black inventors to get their inventions mass produced, they have to go before white companies. These white companies acquire the right to these inventions and then place white faces in front of the technology. This scenario literally allowed the white society to continue exploiting the intellectual genius of black people while maintaining the appearance that all technological advancements are coming from the white men, from the minds of white people. In reality, most of the technological advancements are coming from black people. Your perception of reality is an elaborate white deception. According to social science, perception is more important than reality for controlling people. So the white society has distorted perception that aids in maintaining white dominance. The white society sits upon a throne of white exalting lies and black marginalizing lies. The history we've been taught has been intentionally whitewashed to make Caucasians appear more significant throughout history than they truly in fact were. It also makes we Africans appear less significant throughout history than we in fact were. They achieved this by making their failures appear to be ours and making our societal contributions appear as being theirs. This practice is called Orwellian propaganda. Orwellian propaganda are societal conditions created and sustained by misinformation, distortion of fact, denial of truth, and even the manipulation of the past to falsely exalt Caucasians and to falsely marginalize black people. White historians justify this unethical practice by saying that it's customary for conquerors to distort facts and rewrite history to favor themselves. However, the true reason it's being done is much more self-serving of the white society. It's because according to white social scientists, a people's future is predestined based upon the history they're taught to believe by themselves. According to their theory, an inspiring history is necessary to acquire an inspiring future because people are referencing their future capabilities based upon their past achievements. More specifically, it's the process of imparting information, knowledge, and values which best enables people to realize their highest potential. People then references these messages about their particular group to acquire the self-image and assess their potential and capability in relation to those messages. Therefore, the whitewashing of history is designed to bolster the collective self-esteem and to inspire the future aspirations of Caucasians, while simultaneously crippling the self-esteem and stifling the future aspirations of black students. It's how the white society maintain their future well into the future, their dominance well into the future. This is what's meant when white social scientist says that those who control the past also control the future. This whitewashing of history also creates and sustains false assumptions within society that aids the white society in maintaining their white dominance. According to Orwellian propagandists, truth is not important. What's only important is what's perceived as being true in order to inspire people's future. True power lies in only what's perceived as being true because people function based upon their perceptions of what's true rather than what actually is true. Therefore, creating the perception of white racial superiority over black people greatly empowers the white society insurmountably while crippling black people. This Orwellian propaganda, whitewashing of history also gives the white society a false historical platform that endorses the myth of their racial superiority. Through this nefarious practice, the collective self-esteem of the white masses have been falsely bolstered at the expense of the collective self-esteem of the black masses. The general population doesn't know what's happening, and it doesn't even know it doesn't know. Noam Chomsky said that. We African Americans have now been in this country for more than 403 years. If after all this time, your best assessment is that a Bible brutally beaten into the minds of our ancestors is going to provide our liberation, or you believe that we're controlled by a silly slave syndrome myth, which present what will be the least effective method used to control generations of people, is because you are ignorant. And your ignorance stifles black liberation. Whenever people are ignorant, they believe nonsense. There are social sciences that the white society uses for maintaining their dominance. We must learn these social sciences and develop counter strategies to overcome them. The white society deploys information warfare against us. They manipulate our minds to think in ways that protects their interests. They exploit their monopoly over information that's fed into our minds. It's not a silly slave syndrome myth. The time of believing in dumb shit is over. One love and peace, brothers and sisters.